What's up, everybody? Your favorite moment you've all been waiting for is favorite nerd, and today we are talking about the Toyworld versus the Generation Toy Devy. Both are good, but let's talk about these robot modes. The Toyworlds are far more G1, and the Generation Toy are far more stylized, as we kind of came to expect. But for me personally, I think that the Toyworld one edges them out. The only issue I have with the Toyworld one are obviously there's elbows breaking and stuff, not on mine, but on people's, and long haul standing was an issue. That's one thing that I want to make clear, is that it is very interesting that there's such I feel like the materials on the Generation Toy are far more sturdy than those of the Toyworld, but because of the parts forming with the Toyworld, we don't really have a problem with the stability. But I think robot modes, I think that the Toyworld one definitely edges them out. It may be just because that's what I'm used to. I know the Generation Toy is supposed to be stylized, but sometimes it seems like some of those decisions are made with laziness because they can sort of put it on the stylization. And here are the alt modes, and this one, I think that it's clear that Generation Toy has them beat. There's certain things with the Toyworld ones that I don't know. Like Scrapper, for instance, just doesn't sit right with me 100%. There isn't a cartoon element that the Toyworld ones have. It's not like they're bad. I just really like that very modern look of the Generation Toy one. So it's definitely a subjective thing, but that's me. So we're going to go through joint for joint. The head, you get the swivel hinge, but like we said, the hinge up doesn't really want to stay. And the hinge down is good to go. The sculpt is great, I think. It's stylized, but it is what it is. But I will say that the overall top of how everything kind of connects is a bit on the messy side. Not distractingly so, but something worth noting. Now you get the hinge up, no problem, and the swivel, and a little bit of a hinge down. And it works better. But I have to say that aesthetically, I don't like it as much. I hope that somebody, I think I heard that somebody's coming along and doing a head. I would really like to see that. But the top of the piece cleans up a lot better. His right shoulder, like we talked about, the triple joint. So you get down to there, up to there, so just about 90 degrees. You get the swivel around that holds the weight well. But stuff did come untabbed there. Bicep swivel just above the elbow. The elbow is a single joint, but it gets you more than 90 degrees. But the sculpt isn't the best. Not terrible, but it's not the best. It'll do, I think. And then wrist swivel. One joint, two joints. I guess three if you count the swivel. And then all of these have 1, 2, 3 joints as well. Ball joints at the end, and then hinges. These shoulders, I believe, are triple jointed as well. But because of where the ratchets are in regard to one another and into the final position, it's a lot more difficult to move it and get it to stay, because it wants to operate on more free moving hinges rather than the ratchets themselves, because the ratchets are so strong. He also gets the bicep swivel right above the elbow. And then the elbow itself is really, it's double jointed, but it really operates more so off of this single joint. And then the second joint helps move these pieces, which is a cool touch, and it makes it interesting to look at. His wrist, swivel here, and also hinge in and out. Well, it's in and out, this, or up and down, depending on which way you swivel it. So that's cool. And then his hand articulation is done probably a bit better, with double hinges here at the thumb joint and then an additional hinge at the first knuckle. All of these are on independent hinges at the base knuckle, and then 1, 2 hinges, so it operates and does the same thing, but because these are like more so universal joints down here, you don't have the ball peg issue if ball pegs are issue-like to you, if they are issues for you, I guess I should say. As for this shoulder, same as we just saw recently, but we're showing again, out to just shy of 90 degrees, and I might, it's the crane getting in the way, but you can probably get it to 90. And then the swivel, so that's fine. Same articulation down here below. So this shoulder, same thing, but it works a bit better because you can use, I don't know if you would see that, this section here to push against hook to operate the ratchet as opposed to what the ratchet is connected to inside a bone crusher. So this arm actually ends up working a bit better. Bicep swivel, elbow, wrist, hand, fingers, all the same. Waist swivel, no problems there whatsoever. Also, you get a reverse ab crunch back. Not the prettiest thing, but you get it. Waist swivel is intact, free moving, and then you have this rocking system here where you can move and use a crotch thrust as well as an ab crunch down. Left hip, but you have to hold it together. 90 degrees. Forward to 90 degrees, but it pops the hip flap off. And back to 90 degrees. Thigh swivel, no problem. Knee double jointed, but just about get you 90 degrees. Ankle rocker, pretty limited, but it is there. Oh, and it has a tilt as well. I didn't know that. I missed that. I missed that before. So there's a tilt forward, no tilt back. That's pretty cool. For the universal joints themselves, 90 without popping a piece off. $90. Thigh swivel into the bottom of both. Knee is double jointed, getting you way past 90 degrees. And these pieces slide for parts forming. Pretty much the same range of motion in, which is where it counts, probably a little bit more out, which isn't very useful. And no ankle tilt. Same on this side. 90. $90 forward if you pop the piece off. If not, it's about to there. Little, maybe 45. And then 90 back. Maybe a little bit more than 45. Thigh swivel. Double jointed knee getting you 90 degrees easy on this side. Ankle rocker, same sort of limited bit. And you get the tilt down here on this side. This stuff might come unpopped here on the side, these purple bits, but you still get the articulation. Same on the other side. 90. 90. 90. With no problems. Pretty much the exact same thing. And when it comes to the front, I do like that you can get the scoop the right way easily with no problem. And I think it looks good. I think it looks threatening. I think it looks imposing, and I think it looks true to the Warbotron aesthetic that it tries to kind of mimic and keep with, rather. So here he is from the front, you know, incredibly imposing. I have to say, like, you know, he certainly has a very strong presence. There's no doubt about it. Backside, very clean, and you could probably take some even extra care, some extra TLC, and tighten it up even better. But I did forget to mention in the review, you can fold that crane down in the back for a more streamlined look. So you get the look from the front, but it doesn't take up room on the back. That's a nice thought. And he also cleans up very well in the back. I would say he's definitely cleaner all around, to be honest. There they are, size comparison with Masterpiece Prime and a Voyager Silverbolt. I don't have a Voyager Prime, but to give you an idea. Once again, arguably, I think they both work. But I must admit, I'm preferring the size of Toyworld here. Even though, technically, it wouldn't make sense. But I guess at a certain point you have to say they're giant alien transforming robots. What really needs to make sense other than looking cool? And that's totally valid. Final thoughts wise, there's a lot to say. So this is going to be wordy and not very entertaining. But this is how I feel about it. So let's talk about the positives of Toyworld over Generation Toy. I think Toyworld's Devastator cleans up more. it cleans up much better. It doesn't look like it's made up of 6 transforming pieces. It looks like 6 pieces came together to make a giant robot, and that is a cool undertaking. I do like the parts forming pieces and how they move and shift to give it a very organic look versus the parts forming pieces and non-parts forming pieces of Generation Toy that just look very static and very add-on-ish. I like that the Toyworld bots look very cartoon, very G1 cartoon. I totally dig that. I like that not as many things come untabbed. Everything is a bit locked in more so than Generation Toys, which kind of, you have to shift it, fiddle with it, and then clean it up. Shift it, fiddle with it, and then clean it up. That's not really the situation with Toyworld. There's a couple things you need to clean up with Toyworld, but not nearly as much. Apparently, Generation Toy comes with palm covers in the Megatron box. I haven't got a chance to go through that yet, but it helps him hold his gun. I can't comment on that because I haven't done it yet, but the Toyworld one does hold the gun straight out of the box, so that's a nice touch as well. I like the foot on Toyworld, the Mixmaster foot more on Toyworld. Actually, both feet more on Toyworld than I do on Generation Toy. But there is a certain charm to the Generation Toy one because it's like it's just splatting on the ground and trying to keep up all that weight. And there is something cool about that. I must also say that the chest piece clips in better for Toyworld than it does for Generation Toy. I like the purple tint on all of the windows for Toyworld versus this kind of clearish tint on Generation Toy. Now let me talk about what I like about the Generation Toy over the Toyworld. I like that the Generation Toy is just as solid without relying on additional pieces. Not that I'm anti-parts forming, I just admire the engineering undertaking. I like the bulk of Generation Toy's Devastator over the bulk of Toyworld's Devastator, like the width. I like how the ratchets move much more freely but remain sturdy on the Generation Toy versus the Toyworld. I love the alt modes on the Generation Toy. I love how they look very real worldy and they look very lived in a sense, with all the staircases and all that kind of stuff. It gives you a good feel. I love the purple barrel on Generation Toy without having to buy an additional purple barrel. Now we know that the Toyworld one is going for Studio Ox, and I think it nails the Studio Ox design. But the Studio Ox design cylinder on Mixmaster was gray, not green. So I don't understand why they made the choice to go green there. Generation Toy, however, is doing more of an updated G1 look, so they kept that purple hat tip and also managed to make it their own in the sense of hue. So I do appreciate that. Materials wise, they both feel good, but they both make big mistakes along the way. Toyworld has small places for pins and flaps that feel very fragile and people have broken along the way. Generation Toy has small flaps as well, just not as many. I like that the Generation Toy scoop on Scavenger sits vertical as opposed to the Toyworld one, which sits, I guess, vertical as well, but it sits facing downward naturally. But once again, I'm pretty sure it's an Ox design. They both have presence in their own right. I think that Generation Toy is more interesting to look at just because of how much stuff is going on, like all the little staircases and all the little moving parts, like especially on, if you look at Scrapper, between where the person sits to drive it and the bucket, like that little armature that comes down. It's just little things like that throughout that kind of give an interesting look. But Toyworld's has more of a presence. People come in and they notice this Devastator in my house. Like, he stands out. I think the Generation Toys bots are much more stylized, but sometimes I feel like that stylization is a shortcut. Like, there's some of them, like for instance, their Scrapper works really well. I even think their Scavenger works really well. But I feel like their Bone Crusher, like, they really just didn't know what to do with all that stuff. Whereas with their Mixmaster, the feet choice, which I don't like either, I feel like is more of a choice and not a lack of engineering. I feel like that was a conscious choice they made to make it look a certain kind of way. The thing is about the Generation Toy Devastator is that between the Generation Toy Devastator, Feral Rex, Unique Toys Abominus, TFC's Lyle Kaiser, if you went in on that, Warbitron's Bruticus, and this Transform Mission Menasor that's coming, you have a complete set of G1 Decepticon combiners, all similarly stylized. This Toyworld one is much more of a gamble, because obviously he won't fit with the smaller size, but if more people hop on this bandwagon, it would be an even more impressive collection. Rumor has it that Toyworld has a Superion and a Bruticus coming. I can't speak on that, but that's the rumor. I have to admit, although I didn't think I'd be sold initially, I do prefer Toyworld's size. I must admit also that as I'm sitting here looking at them both, for the first time, the skinniness of Toyworld's Devy is bothering me. Not immensely, but it is bothering me. I also have to say that the Toyworld connection, I think it's Scrapper, I couldn't get it to go all the way. I couldn't get it to connect all the way. And I fiddled a bit more with the Generation Toy one, and you see I even got those gray flaps down, and I got him standing up without falling over backward. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. They're both good. They're both, well, I'll say what they both have in common is they are both solid. What they both have in common is that they are both well articulated. They are both well painted. Generation Toy, I think, has more paint than Toyworld, but they're both well painted. It's really, unfortunately, going to come down to personal preference. I think, in the end, I'm going to be keeping Toyworld's Devy combined. However, if these other combiners don't come, I can't have him looking like this next to Feral Rex and all the others, so I'll just swap out. They're both well made, but they also both have critical flaws along the way between, you know, history of breaking and stress marks and, you know, the like. So I would say take a long, hard look at both. Take a long, hard look at your collection and choose what suits your needs best. Once again, much like the Megatron, much like the Reflector situation, there's not really a bad choice. They're both good for different reasons. They both lack for different reasons, but neither of them are good enough to smash the other, nor lack enough to make them not worth buying. But I think with Takara Masterpiece most recently taking a very animation cell look to their figure stylizations, Toyworld's Devy makes more sense for my collection currently. Whereas during the times of Red Alert and Sideswipe and all them, maybe this Generation Toy one would have made more sense. But the Masterpiece formula has gotten cleaner, it's gotten slicker, and I think that Toyworld's aesthetics fit that better. So, I would say for a Masterpiece collection, Toyworld is the more appropriate choice. The things that are going to bother you about it is if the other combiners aren't made, the fact that Scavenger Shovel is facing the wrong way, and the fact that the head and torso are both Studio Ox inspired and not G1 inspired. For your Chug, Generation Toys Devastator is obviously the better choice. However, he can also fit in with the Masterpiece collection, especially if you have the other ones and are kind of going with that idea of, look, if 6 bots that were the size of Masterpiece cars stood on top of each other, they'd be about this tall. And that's totally valid. Scale is in the eye of the beholder, my friends. So that really comes down to how you feel about it. The nice thing is if you have the other ones and you get this one, you can kind of look at it and say you're done. Whereas I might have to go in on another set of combiners across the board, which I can tell you doesn't make me feel really good. I hope I'm able to shed some sort of light on this. I know it's not the easiest decision to make. You're talking about $600 and you would like for me to give you a definitive answer. The problem is there is no definitive answer here. They're both done so well that it's going to come down to how you feel about them, what you want represented on your shelf, and how you want it represented on your shelf. I personally initially started off this venture with Generation Toy being my Devastator and Toyworld being my bot modes. I think in the end, Toyworld will be my Devastator and Generation Toy will be my bot modes. But once again, give it a year and no other combiners are announced in this Toyworld scale. It's getting broken down, Generation Toy is getting built up, and that's the end of it. Hope that helps. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.